chief's shirt.
Bill Sutton, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I was going to say good morning, but I want you all to say, how about those Chiefs? And he's going to put it on the news tonight. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. How about those Chiefs? Hey, we made the news tonight. All right. On my right, sports analyst and, and commissioner of the 2nd District, Commissioner Kevin Cook, and on my left is Aaron Mays, 3-year MVP and Commissioner of District 3. I'm Bill Rippon, washed up D-back from Old High School, and Commissioner for District 1. So anyway, all right. And you like the new county
I
county
love
flag?
the new county flag. It's
Okay, yeah, I
fantastic.
thought I'd bring it out and introduce it to everybody. What's first?
First item is item 3, consent agenda.
I'll move for approval as presented.
Second?
Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item 4, new business A, county clerk number 1, consider all voucher payments.
Commissioners, this morning we have vouchers that total $1,346,403.73. The largest item out of the voucher report is our JADO contribution of $670,344.92, followed by, under general expense, the work comp excess and the piping contractors for the Department of Correction boiler repair is $237,193.43. Health insurance premiums of $184,831.70. And then finally, out of the District Attorney's Office, a contract with the Attorney General for appellate work, $105,000. I do not have any questions regarding the vouchers and would move for their approval.
Second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item A2, consider correction orders.
I'll move that we approve.
One second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item B, public works number 1, consider approval of request to hire a noxious weed director at a salary including benefits of $76,554.55 with funding from the noxious weed department budget.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kurt Neous, Director of Public Works. Late last year, Parks and Rec got approval from the Commission to advertise and fill the position of Noxious Weed Director. Since then, we had 4 applicants. The interview team, which consisted of Jeremy Myers, Betty Griner, and myself, interviewed the 4 applicants. And an applicant has recently been selected, and a conditional offer has been extended. And I do want to take this time to thank Jeremy for setting all those interviews up during the transitional period. The preferred applicant, John Landon, served as the Noxious Weed Director for Douglas County for 11 years. He possesses all the certifications needed by the state, so I think he's ready to start the position running. Considering his experiences and qualifications, I think a salary with benefits of a little over $76,000 is appropriate. Human Resources and Audit Finance have each approved this proposed salary. And so with that, I take your questions. Public Works recommends that we hire John Landon as the Noxious Weed Director.
Any questions?
I would note this is the 3rd weed director starting out with the first name of John, so perhaps that's going to be a part of the job requirement. I'm glad that you were able to fill that position, and I would move for approval.
I'll second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Kurt, and thank you, Jeremy, for setting up all the interviews. Next item.
Item C, planning number 1, consider approval of resolution number 2020-9 for a conditional use permit to allow a food service facility in an accessory building at 3700 Northwest Eric Drive.
Good morning, Commissioners. Randy Anderson, Planning Department. Get this PowerPoint up here and we'll go.
I would, at this time, I'd like to say that I've had no communications from anyone regarding this item, no emails or phone messages.
I've had no ex parte communications.
Me neither.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. What we're looking at here is a conditional use permit for actually two uses. The first is to establish a bed and breakfast inn, and the second is to have an event center in an existing barn. The bed and breakfast will also be in the existing house on the property. The commission did see a request.
We're on the permit for the 3700 Northwest Eric Drive.
Oh,
for the
okay, you're doing the hard.
Food service.
Okay, got them in order.
Sorry about that.
Okay, this one's even easier. We have on Eric, we have a conditional use permit for a property owner who wishes to use an accessory barn, Butler building basically for a hobby use. She does off-site, she bakes goods and preserves goods for off-site sell and off-site catering. She would be offering classes up to 8 students. There would not be any on-site retail or food uses where I could walk in there and buy some goods like a bakery, strictly for off-site consumption. This use was conducted or has been conducted for the past 3 years. The applicant says they weren't aware they needed a conditional use permit. Because they're not running a business per se, they're doing the baking and they're selling them to a county fair or some other like event. The property itself is situated right at the corner of Eric and Northwest 37th. This is the pole barn where the facility is located, and it'd be in this one quarter of the facility where the bakery is taking place. The home here, this is a 2.5 acre property. You see there's it's a very quiet side, very quiet use. When you drive by there, you wouldn't have any idea anything was going on inside that was even quasi business-like. So, these are all large acre lots out here. Pretty good spacing between all the properties. If the use wasn't being conducted as it was, the staff recommendation would be totally different. You generally don't want to have a business in a neighborhood. Obviously, this is completely all residential, quasi-agriculture. But when you drive by there, you don't get the sense there's any kind of business that's being conducted. Notice was sent out to all these different people within the area. We had one resident who showed up in opposition, concerned about the commercial use of the property. Other than that, we've also on our side, it's been very quiet on the phones and the emails and quiet at the planning commission with that one person speaking in opposition. Show you this. This is the facility that we're talking about. The bakery is located right here in these 950 square feet. You have commercial scale ovens and other equipment like that, but again, there's no walk up where you can go in there and buy something or a cabinet where you can buy goods. Strictly just a big kitchen. So, with all that in mind, the staff is recommending approval with the 6 conditions we have before you. If this is approved, we would, as a county, be getting some additional right-of-way. The conditional use permit will be limited to the 2 owners of the property, Mr. and Mrs. Souter. Let's see what else is on there. The rest of these are his plan of operation, and we'll be improving their plan of operation by
by consent, if the approval was granted. We also expressly say there's not going to be any retail sales or on-site catered events. There won't be any on-site, any other on-site retail-like facilities or uses that are being conducted. There won't be any outdoor signage on the building. And the exterior of the building cannot be modified to resemble any kind of commercial establishment. So that keeps the status quo basically as it is. And with that, the staff is recommending approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
At this time, I would move to open the public hearing.
Okay. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Do we have anyone here who wishes to speak in opposition to this resolution? Anyone who wants to speak in favor of the resolution? Seeing none, I will, guess I will move for the closure of this public hearing. I have a second.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Okay, what's your pleasure?
It would be my motion to approve the conditional use permit as presented from the Planning Commission with the outlined conditions that were approved by the Planning Commission.
I'll second that. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item C2, consider approval of resolution number 2020-10 for a conditional use permit to allow a bed and breakfast in an existing residence and a special event facility in the existing barn at 3521 Southeast Pollen Road.
No, I'll start on this one, Commissioners. Thank you. Again, Randy Anderson, Planning Department. First I'm gonna start off with just showing you what the property looks like. This is the existing residence on the property. It's been there since early 1960. The barn is a vintage, I think 1920-ish era barn that's been there for almost 100 years. And so these are the two facilities that the uses are being proposed. When the commission considered a very similar request in 2018, the property at that time was split right here, where the red line crosses this 30.4 acre site. At that time, the legal was just for the entrance on Paulin down to that corner, in this corner, and back. In trying to address the concerns of the neighbors located on Paulin Road, last time the applicant, Mr. McCollum, decided to put his driveway down here after consultation with many of these neighbors who would back up to this part of the property to get a feel for what their conditions and thoughts were going to be about this change in the use. So instead of all the facilities coming in like this off Paulin, the only thing that'd be coming in this way would be people coming into the bed and breakfast, and any kind of deliveries that are going to go into the barn for the event center. All the other traffic that came into the center would come in off of 37th Street and come in, and parking would be over here, and they'd walk across the creek to get over to the main body of the property where the events are conducted. Here's the property again, where you can see what's going on. Because this other part of the property was added to the request, about 140 additional people that weren't notified last time were brought into the notification area of 167 people or residents who own property. So that covered virtually all these people back behind here and people out to the southeast or southwest and south who were not included in the original request. So there were a lot of new players who got notice of this request this time that weren't previously. Long way. This so you got your bearings on what we're talking about here. I zoomed in on the site plan so you can see this. Here's the barn. I mean, here's the home. Here's the barn down here. There would be an event center about 100 by 150, located, located in this part, located down here to the southwest of the barn. Parking's over here. Here's the long driveway coming in across, and then up to the parking area, and there'd be a walkway coming into the open area where there'd be weddings and other events. So you get your bearings further of what we're talking about. These pictures, most of these pictures were taken from the second story of the barn, so you get a better perspective on what's going on out there. Here's the back southeast corner of the outdoor venue, going across like this. Picture square going across like this. You have a big buffer area that virtually provides nearly 100% opacity between the outdoor venue and the homes that are over here. The thing I would note also in this picture, there is also a pond over here. We did have a comment that's in your packet from one or both of these two property owners who were concerned about people getting from the outdoor venue onto their property. If they're going to get there, they're going to have to walk through a pretty good thicket and grasses, natural area to get that far. But we wanted to give you a perspective how far these people were away from where the events would be taking place. Come on, thing. Oh. And this is looking again from the barn toward the west. You see the outdoor venue is here, and the buffer goes on around this corner. The houses are a considerable distance out here, and you have this big, long 30-acre plus area of open space to the due west of the property. There's the entire venue where you see the whole thing is buffered. Parking will be located right in this area, right through here. People would probably actually go more up to here, and people would walk across and get into the property up to the front. So you see the driveway will be coming in back here somewhere and getting to the parking lot. It's just more of the same, showing you more to the north, what's the lay of the land. You see the little creek that runs through here. That would be part of what the walkway would need to cross to get over to this area. And here's looking back toward the house, and to the east, you see the outdoor venue. This is the northeastern corner of the thing, located right here. Here's the barn, and you can't see the houses that are on the other side of Pullman Road from this vantage point. This is an indication of what the buffering area looks like down on the ground. It is pretty thick. I would not be walking through there if I was wearing a wedding dress or a suit going to or from the event. So what this thing comes down to, this CUP comes down to really is traffic, and the future use of the land and the intensity of use of the land. This basically was how the staff reasoned this thing out, was on this basis. The property is ripe for single-family residential development because you have a development located due north, so it'd be very simple to bring utilities from the south directly into this property, and then to extend them out to Paulin and 37th Street. So it would not be having to do any cross-country sanitary sewer to get to this property or water. It's all right there. There are stub outs to the north. So again, you could take your access from that subdivision and bring it right in here and empty it out onto Paulin and 37th Street. Both of those two stems have 60 feet of width. So that's the exact right area you need to have a standard right-of-way with the full normal street pavement and all the rest. So the question is, do you want to have the property be subdivided and developed at some point, or do you want to stave off the urbanization of it and delay that with some other use there in the interim before the neighborhood changes from rural residential to suburban residential? So that becomes the question. So we did the math. I'm going to show you if we figure it. And these numbers are all based on Institute of Transportation Engineer data. This is standard practice across the country. A bed and breakfast, they're not going to be they will not be occupied, all four, at the same time, every day of the week. So based on a 50% occupancy, we went ahead and aired high and said 12 trips per day, and that's over the full month. That number's probably high, but for this exercise, we wanted to see what the worst-case scenario might look like. So that comes out to 12 trips per day. The event center, with the parking that's proposed and the limitation of the seating, that's been required by the fire marshal. That'd be 45 trips per event, and that really should be 90, because it's 45 to the event and 45 leaving the event. So that would really be 90 trips, and 16 trips for the event setup and breakdown of the event. The applicant has limited the events to five per month. So if you have 2 trips per event, that'd be 10 trips times 16 is 61, or 61. So when you add all that up, the bed and breakfast and the event center, it's roughly 665 to 700 trips per month for this use. And on the other hand, if you were to subdivide 30.4 acres, and I subtracted 7.5 acres, 7.4 acres for right-of-way and detention, which is pretty much customary, you end up with 23 acres of developed land. So if you develop it out to a density of 3.5 lots, it's 81. You can have 81 lots. You get 3 lots per acre, it's 69. 2.5 acres, it's 58. So you add that up. Each house, each lot produces 10 trips per day times 30 days in the month. You end up with 300 trips per day per lot. So then if you do that, if you multiply that times the density, you could end up with 24,300 if you go to the highest density, and 17,400 for the lowest density. So you end up with a fairly big difference in the number of trips, and that doesn't count deliveries, school buses, and other things that are coming into a neighborhood to serve the neighborhood. So this is where the staff came down in its reasoning, that the first option maintains the rural character, and the second one basically, the second option basically changes it forever to a suburban type of a feel. And that was a big part of our reasoning. If people were concerned about traffic and impact on the neighborhood, the event center and bed and breakfast would maintain their current character, and the other would change it forever. This is just what a subdivision might look like. If you came in here, you'd have, here's the stub street coming in from the north. You could have a long street that would take you into the vacant property this way and winds you through back out to here. And here's the stub down here coming into 37th Street, and you'd have another street. You have houses backing up to this street, backing up from this. These are the circles represent corners where the lotting would change. So it'd be very easy, I think, to develop this property where you'd have stormwater detention that ties into the stormwater to the north up here. You have an amenity center next to the water, small parking lot for people to get there for a playground, and nice water lots located around this, a water feature, so you could have a premium on the lot. So it would be a very attractive place for a subdivision at some point in the future. So with all that in mind, the staff is recommending approval. The Planning Commission also recommended approval of the request by a vote of 4-0. Right after, within a day or two after the commission action, the city of Topeka contacted us and said that the owner would need to make a request to annex the property into the city, subdivide the subject property, and to obtain approvals to connect to the city of Topeka sanitary sewer system. So we're talking about a service line, not a conventional sewer main or water main. So we want we add that condition with number one of things that the applicant would need to do prior to getting a building permit issue. We want to make sure that everything is in order before we issue a permit to say go forward and use the facility. We've had applicants where there were conditions of approval that were not satisfied prior to the issuance of a permit, so we want to avoid that situation. We also are asking for a condition that they do put up a sign, a 9-square-foot sign on each street that would tell motorists where the event center is and where the bed and breakfast is, and there'd be an address on it, and that each use would have its own separate address. So if there was somebody who was suffering from a health issue in the event center, the EMS would get to the event center promptly and not to the other location and have a hard time getting through the property, and vice versa. We have conditions that govern both uses, but the most extensive is for the event center. The big points that I want to read into the record is that it shall comply with all applicable building, fire, and health codes at all times. There right now are some issues, we believe, with the accessibility of the front porch on the barn not meeting the ADA requirements, and that there's not enough railing and weight limitation on the second story deck. When you have an event, you might have 30, 40 people up there dancing around, jumping and stuff. We want to avoid a catastrophe of the weight of furniture, barbecues, people, whatever, exceeding the weight limitations and there being a catastrophic safety event. So we are requesting that they meet when you go into all of this right here, all building and fire codes, that's that right there. We have a maximum occupancy limitation of 90 per the Shawnee Heights Fire District. All events shall not begin before 9 a.m. and shall end at 10 p.m. with all outdoor activities ceasing at 9 p.m. There'll be only one event at any given time. The events will be limited to 5 per month, so that'd be 5 weekends. All the lighting will be shielded away from the property lines, so with the buffering and the lights directed into the event and not spilling out over the whole property, that would minimize the impact on the neighbors. And all existing trees and vegetation that screen the barn and outdoor area shall be retained. It was a big point. And basically, those are the big points. I already talked about the deck and the Americans with Disability questions. So, with all those conditions, we believe it'd be easier for us to regulate it with conditions than to not regulate it and have unauthorized events, and then we're fighting a code enforcement situation like we are with some other properties where you have an event center going on where it's difficult to pin it down on what is a violation and what is not a violation. So with those conditions, we feel like it would be easier to deal with the property and hold off the urbanization until some future time. So we are recommending approval, as was the Planning Commission. Happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'd move to open the public hearing.
I had a couple of questions here before we do that. That deck, how high up in the air is, or just approximately,
Let me show you.
is it over 3 feet high? Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. See, here's the ground deck.
Okay.
So then there's a good step off. So our concern is people trying to get up there. I mean, when there's a barn, who cares? It's just a barn. But when you turn it into to an event center, and all of a sudden you change the use, then all the bets go away. You have to protect the public and get them up to the events and down from it. So it needs to be some kind of steps, some kind of railing, so people aren't out here dancing and fall off the thing. But the bigger concern is this part up here. You got three beams that hold the thing up. Again, that's perfect if it's for a family use and you've only got 15 people or less in a family up there, so you may only have half of them up there at any time doing things. But when you have a crowd of people at an event of 90 people, you might have 15, 20 people up there or more dancing around and doing things. And so we're concerned about this. If you look real closely at that, you only see there's one rail on the
Yes.
top. So there's nothing in the middle for a small child to walk out and step off the thing. So that's what we're talking about.
Okay. Yeah, I think that definitely needs to be looked at, weight load on that deck and the railing as well, so. And there's some ADA concerns, but those will all be addressed.
That's what we're looking for before the issuance of a permit. I mean, before we authorize the building permit, we want to make sure that whatever needs to be done is in the works, that it's been planned for, it'll be installed, and then we'll be content at that point to issue a permit. But until then, we're not going to be.
Okay. Yes.
Obviously, this isn't gonna take up the whole 30 acres, and so, you had mentioned the comparison between, subdivided, residential lots and this. Are there assurances in here in the CUP to make sure that, after we approve this, that doesn't come back and subdivide the remaining, acreage?
The property is zoned properly, it's RR1, and so it's zoned property for somebody just to walk in at any time and subdivide it by right. So we can't prohibit somebody from going in there. They have legal zoning for, asking for a legal use of subdivision, so no. If they would have to go through the city of Topeka, and Topeka would look at it strictly from a plating standpoint, which if it meets all their criteria, they would be required legally to approve it. It's very doubtful that somebody would want to leave this in here and subdivide the remainder. If I was doing a subdivision, I would definitely want the multiple street access and want to use this area right here as a drainage area / amenity area. So I think it's either gonna all be one or the other. It'll be the event center with this being vacant, or a subdivision with all the property being developed at one time, or probably in phases.
And we're requesting annexation of the entire lot, of the 30 acres?
That's correct.
Okay.
Are they currently on sanitary sewer, or is it a
No, they're on septic.
septic?
Yep. So the city, what the city wants, I don't know where the end of the line is, but I would imagine it's down here somewhere. They will want a service line to come down and hook the house and the barn into a service line that would connect up here. All the water here drains from the south to the north through this area right here, so that'd be a great space for a sanitary sewer line or a sanitary sewer connection in the short term, and long term be the corridor for sanitary sewer and drainage detention.
And at that point, would it be annexed then?
It would be annexed upon the approval of the plat. So
Okay.
it's gonna leave the city, I mean, it's gonna leave the county jurisdiction in its entirety at some point in the near term. If it doesn't, then the city's not gonna issue a approval, and the use is dead. So it's important you mention that, though, because we have sent these conditions to the city, because we want to make sure that the city of Topeka, after annexation, believes those conditions will cover their needs to ensure that this is not going to be a problem for the city upon annexation, and we haven't had any comments to the contrary saying that it would. So I think they're content that these are adequate conditions to, for the long-term use of the property, either way.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? I'd like to mention too that I have had no emails or phone messages concerning this project.
No ex parte communication?
None from me.
Okay. I'd like to move, for us to move into, or make a motion to move into a public meeting at this point.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Now in a public hearing, anyone here opposed to this project? Let's speak first. Okay. Come on up to the podium and give us your name.
Good morning. My name is Juan Barranco, and I live at 3513 Southeast Pollen Road. It's the road that sits off to the north of me that he was going to use for the bed and breakfast coming in. It's only a single-lane road there. But he proposed another road, which is going off of 37th Street, because we were concerned with the traffic the first time they came in, and it got denied because a single road with all the cars coming in. Where it comes off to on Pollen Road, we have a neighbor right there, and she was concerned of all the headlights hidden in her bedroom right there, and which is it comes to a T there. She can go for it. So, Mr. McCollum here decides to, which he did a pretty good job on it, moving in a different area off of 37th Street for the traffic. The bed and breakfast thing is we're still going to have traffic coming in, and I talked to the planning commission about how many cars are going to come up and down, and he said, well, it should be no more than about 6 cars coming up and down that road for the residents. So I just want to make sure that if that's the case, we want to make sure that is into the records, that if the bed and breakfast is approved, no more than, I think he said 6 cars, plus the owner had 2 cars on that, so a total of 8, plus 1 delivery truck that helps for the event center on that. But getting back to, for me, on the zoning report, which we first came over for the meeting, which they handed it out here. I want you to see where it says present use on there. It says the existing use of this site is horticulture with a farmstead, a garage, barn, storage shed. It should be noted that improvements to the barn has been completed without permit. So we're stating that that barn is 100 years old, and as I read on the Shawnee County building permit, on the permit requirement and use on here, it's stated that no building or structure shall be constructed, placed, altered, moved, or occupied, converted, or removed, or demolished except in accordance with the adoption of Shawnee County Building Code and Shawnee County Building Permit procedures. It shall be unlawful to maintain, occupy, or use a building structure or any part thereof that has been erected or altered in a violation of the provision of the building code and permit procedures. No work on a building or structure subject to a Shawnee County building permit shall begin until such time a building permit is authorized. Same has been issued by the Shawnee County Planning Department. So, if you see that barn there, it's already been altered. He already put windows in. As a barn, it's supposed to be just for horticulture use, storage shed. So my question is, has that foundation has been inspected? Has there been soil samples has been there? Like I said, it's on your permit requirement, it's been altered. So the commissioner, the planning commissioner here, he had concerns too with all the dancing and all that coming down at the collapse of that building. And that is the concern, because if he's planning to have 90 families, 90 people there, and that collapse, there'd be a lot of questions to be asked. Why wasn't there permits on that building? And for us Shawnee County residents, that would be asking that question too. Why did he alter that building? Why wasn't the permit first before that got started? So he talks about, when he first came up, he told us that if this wasn't approved, Mr. McCollum here, he said that changes are going to happen, that he's going to do sell the land and there'd be nothing but constructions going on, which for me, what I heard annex, I don't like that word, but anyway, I just thought maybe that it would stay with the county, and of course it'd be a better tax for us over here. We have, our houses range around that whole area from Pollen Road to 37th Street. Those houses range from a $300,000 to a $400,000 value home, probably more on that. I just see something like that maybe going down our tax value of those houses there. But also that land that's right back there, I know that's pretty prime for the development, and more for our tax base for Shawnee County. Besides that, I pose no on this.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak in opposition to this resolution? Anyone like to speak in favor of this resolution? Okay. Okay, yes.
What they do is just hit that button to advance it.
Good morning, Commissioners. You stole my opening line, but go Chiefs. I'm Rod McCollum, 3521 Southeast Paulin Road. We're looking at a place where I was born and raised. The day of the old wooden barn is just about over, as they were the wrong size, wrong shape, expensive to maintain, and are getting old. Ours turns 100 in just a few years. Dad started by rebuilding the foundations back in the 80s, and now ours will last many more. I love local history, enjoy preserving and sharing it. I'll decorate the old barn like a Cracker Barrel and have stories for all of it. My business plan is not one based on optimizing profit. Instead, it's driven by the customer experience, one allowing setup on a Thursday, tear down on a Sunday, and making the event more of a pleasure than a rushed and stressful time, as there is always plenty of opportunity for that. The bed and breakfast is anticipated to lodge the out-of-town guests, special guests on the property, making the event even more special. We have 2 bedrooms upstairs to accommodate our special needs guests. The basement being the large shared space for the guests to take over and make it for their own for the duration of the event. I finished the basement with a country feel, enhancing the experience that I'm attempting to offer. You are here, so you've read my narrative sent out by the county, and you've heard them state at the beginning of this meeting the projected land use is a subdivision. I feel I'm presenting a way to have a small impact on a neighborhood rather than a very large and drastic one that will take years to complete and allow life to go back to a new normal. This is my second attempt to obtain a conditional use permit and to help ease the concern of my neighbors and friends up on Paulin Road. I'm willing to use the entrance, the existing entrance off 37th Street into a parking area on the west side of the creek, eliminating the concerns of using my driveway to allow the 40 cars anticipated to use the entrance off 37th Street that is designed to handle the entire traffic flow of a subdivision. We are in a creek bottom. The activity area is surrounded by shrubs, and it'll keep most of the noise contained. By keeping more weddings in our county, there are several new jobs along with the revenue generated by local support companies, and let's not forget those higher taxes. I know change is not always an enjoyable thing, but I think I've offered a small inconvenience to prevent a very large one. I know it would give me a very enjoyable way to make Newlyweds Special Day very special. The opportunity to be the old guy that makes everything work and the gardener for a very beautiful property so that I can grow old and die where I was born and raised. On the conditions, I have no problem with the conditions. I do have a couple of points that I'd like to make on it. I need the permits so that I can start working on the building to get it to the point where it's safe and ready to use. I've already contacted the structural engineer. The civil engineer is already working with the city on the sewer line. I've done everything possible to do without building permits. It's too cold to dig. If I can get and first they have to, I've already submitted the drawings of the barn the way it currently is, and I'll have to get permits for what's been done. I understand that. And then we can go on and safely do what needs to be done. The dancing is done downstairs. It's on a concrete floor. So there's no weight, and it's a haymow. It's built enormously strong. But the only thing the upstairs is used for is the bride and groom to have rooms to get changed and be ready for the wedding. The bride will be presented out the patio door and then down steps onto the lower, is the stage, the deck. But that's where the weddings will be, is on that bottom deck. The concerns on the railings and all those things, I quit when I found out I had to have permits. I thought I was building my home for when I came back to take care of Mom and Dad, and I thought by building the barn into a house, I'd have the perfect place for me to live. And I found out you can't have two houses on a single lane driveway. And that's what's driven me to this point and this idea. Plus, if I can keep the whole property, I have to generate a revenue off of it to make it work. But the ADA problems, those are all in plans, ready to go. I just need the okay to go. If this was to be approved, I would like to be able to submit my building permits. I understand I don't get the permit to operate the CUP until everything is done and compliant. I get that. But I just need the availability to start on my construction work. One other thing I'd like to ask for is the county allows events till 11 o'clock at night. I'm asking, just on the 4th of July, can I go with that as my closing time? It's noisy, it's loud, the fireworks are going off everywhere, and I see the opportunity to sell an event and still have it closed down and have them out by 11 o'clock at night. So that's the only two conditions that I'm looking for or hoping for. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions?
I don't have any for the applicant. I do have a couple for Randy.
Okay, all right. Should we close the public hearing at this point, or should we let Randy?
We would ask Randy questions before we close.
Let's do that.
Mr. Chairman. Randy, a couple of questions for you. Is the property that is located to the north and to the west of this already in the city of Topeka, or would this be an island annexation?
No, it's in the city of Topeka. Let me bring that map up. To create an island, that would be an illegal annexation. This up here right now is all in the city of Topeka, so that would be a continuation of their city limits.
With the annexation of this property into the city of Topeka, are we opening up all the rest of the property that is on 37th and in Holland into a unilateral annexation as well?
I don't believe so. What you are doing is, by this property being annexed and utilities put into it, the water and sewer lines being extended would all of a sudden make these properties down here to the south and to the east and up here more developable, because you've got water and sewer located at each of those two spokes of the property. The annexation of any of these properties is contingent upon what the developers want to do. If somebody wants to develop their property and put in water and sewer, then the city the city would request that property be annexed. So it's all depending on what an owner wants to do with this property. If it would involve septic and rural water, it would not need to be annexed. But if they want to have water and sewer served by the city, that constitutes urbanization, and the city would want it to be annexed for certain.
Okay.
Does that answer?
It does. The drainage for the property goes to the north.
Yes.
And so with the construction of an event center and the gravel parking lot, we're not going to be looking at any drainage affecting those neighborhoods to the north and to the west?
We are asking for a Class A drainage plan that would quantify those impacts. We don't believe so, since the footprint, the barn's already there, the house is already there. The only thing new is the parking lot and the driveway, and those would be pervious, be a gravel driveway, so you wouldn't have a concrete asphalt road that would come through this location down here and parking up here, so it probably is gonna show that there's not any impact on drainage by that little bit of gravel driveway.
The concerns of the opponent to the structural integrity of the barn, the applicant would have to have all of that certified before the approval of the project.
Right.
And the request that there be an extension for the event center to 11 o'clock on the 4th of July, is that something that your staff has contemplated, since this is in close proximity to Lake Shawnee?
We haven't contemplated it. We also wouldn't have any objection to it. I mean, everybody in the county seems like they're always shooting off fireworks on that night anyway. A one-time exception during the year shouldn't pose any additional impacts on the properties. We wouldn't have any objection to that being a condition of approval.
And then are you asking of this to be approved as one item for the event and the bed and breakfast, or as two separate approvals?
I would do it as one, but you have the right to split them out if you want. If you like the bed and breakfast but don't like the event center, you can vote yes and no, or vice versa. If you like the other one, not the bed and breakfast, you can vote that way too. It's your prerogative to do either one. We have conditions, and we have them split out for you in the staff report.
But it is the request of the planning commission and the planning director that this be considered as one approval.
Yes, sir.
I don't have any other questions.
Okay. If this is not approved, the owner can still use it for his own private use for however he'd like to use it, probably.
Right, and we have, and you're all aware, we have a lot of non-approved event centers throughout the county where people are doing that without permits or any kind of approvals by the county commission, and those become a continual enforcement issue for the county counselor's office and for our office, and they're difficult to rein in. If you condition it to how it's supposed to operate, we feel like you have more opportunity to actually govern the use of it, as opposed to trying to, if I have an event for my friends, we don't, it's hard to regulate that.
Yeah.
So this is an alternative way for the county and eventually the city to have their thumb on how it's operated, as opposed to a willy-nilly kind of operation where you don't really know who's doing what when.
So we have more control over what goes on
Correct.
if we approve it.
And I want to add one thing. I thought Commissioner Cook was going to go there. On the thing that the applicant submitted or requested, if he wants to split his permitting into two phases, with phase one being turning in plans to improve the center, to improve the barn, to address the issues we're talking about, we can live with that. But the second building permit would be, you can't operate it as an event center until you've done all those improvements, and then we give you the green light to go forward and have an event. So if you want to make that condition, let's see which one that'd be, number one. Condition 1A, obtain permits for all improvements of the barn. You could say improvements, you could leave that one, leave A like it is. That would approve all the improvements that were done without permits. So all the interior shots that you saw, that would approve those alterations, as the neighbor pointed out. So that you'd have one permit for those. A second permit would be to upgrade the facility to meet the ADA and all other safety requirements. And then the third one would be a permit to actually authorize the use of the building being able to operate as an event center. That would give him, because if he doesn't perform all those things, then if he's improved the barn by putting in steps and additional railing and so forth, that's good for who's ever going to use the barn. But you can't have the event center commence until all of them are done, and we can go out there and investigate and see them with our own eyes that they've been improved. Something else I was gonna say. You could also, if you were so inclined, since he volunteered that the second story of the barn is gonna be used exclusively for the bride and groom, you can condition that all special event activities are conducted on the ground floor. So that would also help mitigate the concerns about the weight load on the second story deck. So those are the things that I was sitting here listening to that could be turned into conditions, if you were so inclined.
I think it would be better, Mr. Chairman, if we had the integrity for the entire balcony, regardless of what conditions we may have. I think that in the midst of a wedding party, everybody goes up on the deck, regardless of what conditions we may put here. So it would be better to have it completely approved and structural engineered before we even have an event out there. So,
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, explain to me kind of the timeline of, after we get done here today, I mean, if we approve it, that we would request annexation. I mean, the city of Topeka, what's gonna be their planning or their planning department's role in the permitting process post annexation?
Their timeline has already actually started, and I'll explain here in a minute. Yes.
Please.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jim Krause, Shawnee County Councilor. Just want to make one small distinction. The city has requested a consent to annexation. That's not an automatic annexation. They would have to take action later on to do that. It's not an unusual step in this process for the city if they are required to make approvals with regard to a property, particularly in the 3-mile extraterritorial jurisdictional area around the city limits, to require a consent. So this action would not be an automatic annexation. It's just consent by the landowner. So later on, if the city does decide to proceed with annexation, the owner cannot challenge. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
That's a good point. Timeline, it's a good question. Really the timeline kicks off with condition 1. This itemizes all the things he would need to do before thing 1 happens with the event center. So you have the permits we talked about for the existing uses or alterations. He has consented to annexation to the city. He has begun the subdivision process, and he will be turning in construction plans that show the sanitary sewer line, service line that goes from the city facility into the subject property. So he would have to complete the platting process. While that's going on, he can turn in a Class A drainage plan for Kurt and his staff to review. He can turn in all additional plans to fully convert the barn into an event center, so we can begin reviewing all the construction drawings and other details that are going into that project, into that part of the project. He can turn in final plans, floor plan, tables, chairs, seating plans, all the rest to the fire marshal. He can review that. That will lock in that the occupancy is 90 people as he's proposed. So he get that permit from the fire marshal. We want to make sure his plans are going to utilize gravel that doesn't generate a bunch of dust and blow onto the properties that are adjoining. So he would complete all these things and also dedicate right of way, either by written instruments or on his plat with the city for additional right of way on each of those two straws of his property that adjoin both the two streets. So he would do all of these things first, and then we could issue. And then once those are done, he goes to work on completing the improvements. And once they're completed, that generally govern the barn, then he can actually apply for a building permit to legally authorize the use as an event center. So the timeline, he's already kicked that part off with the county, with the city. They're coordinating with the county on that. We've coordinated on the zoning part with the county, with the city, keeps up on those two. So the two jurisdictions are coordinating with each other. Jim obviously has been involved in the process of, on the county side, making sure that it all fits together. That's the next steps of the process in a nutshell.
Thank you.
Oh, just a minute, we're gonna take a little break here.
Let's just, we're standing.
We get, oh, I guess that's right, we can keep going.
You don't have to stand for it.
If you'd go back to the podium, we'll.
We're standing for the Jews.
You asked what the timeline was. My timeline is to be able to open the event center for events on the 15th of May. And I need the time, of course, to get and I don't know if I'm misunderstanding or maybe we can clarify, but if I don't get building permits to finish the building, the work has to be done before it can be approved as a CUP. So that's my only, and I hear him saying that all these things have to be done before I can start construction, but I can't. The exit doors and all that, they're not even in yet. I mean, there's several of these things that are contingent on the construction that I'm trying to go ahead and start doing. I've already been with the fire marshal, he's all set. I've got an engineer, structural engineer online. I mean, I've pursued everything that I can pursue, and I'm waiting with bated breath. So that's all if I don't get started, I can't finish.
Well, and apparently you didn't understand what I just got finished saying to the commissioner's question. We would split your permits in the four pieces. One, you get a permit for the improvements that you've already done,
Right.
that are already in the barn. So that's permit one. Second permit would be to allow you to begin construction, to improve the barn,
Okay.
to finish it out. And only after you've completed all that stuff will we issue the permit to allow it to be used.
Okay. That's perfectly understood.
So that fits in our natural, because if you improve the barn, it's okay by us if you improve it, but until you use it is when we want to make sure that everything is in place, ready for it to go.
Absolutely.
So,
We're on the same page.
and the fourth permit would be for the conversion of the house to the bed and breakfast.
Okay.
So those are the steps.
Any other questions?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I would move for approval of the application conditioned on a couple of things that we've discussed here today, that the applicant be allowed to go to 11 p.m. on the 4th of July. Otherwise, he would be held to the 10 o'clock timeline, that the issuance of the permits would be based on a timeline as outlined by the planning director into 4 separate phases, and that he would have to comply with all conditions set forth by the planning commission.
I'll second that motion. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you for your patience in going through that.
And good morning, Commissioners. Just a point of clarification, since we did make modifications to the proposed resolution in the packet, our practice in the past has been in a future upcoming commission meeting. We have no meeting on Thursday, so probably next week we will have on the consent agenda a revised copy of that resolution with the amendments that were just included in the motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item.
Item D, Sheriff's Office, number 1, acknowledge receipt of correspondence from Sheriff Hill regarding a renewal of agreement with the Kansas Department of Transportation Impaired Driving Deterrence Program campaign, Contract C 27-2020, to fund overtime only to increase compliance with Kansas traffic laws at a cost of $7,661 with funding from a KDOT grant.
Good morning, Commissioners. Major Hubler with the Sheriff's Office. This is the impaired driving deterrence program that we've participated in for years. It's just a grant from KDOT that gives us money for the overtime. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Questions?
No, I move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Next item.
Item E, corrections, number 1, considered authorization and execution of Contract C 28-2020, an agreement with Alcohol Monitoring Systems, Inc. for the purchase of monitoring devices and services for community corrections operations at a cost of $600 per unit and a monitoring fee of $2.60 per day with funding from block grant funds from the Kansas Department of Corrections.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tim Phelps, Department of Corrections. This item is it's kind of making sure all of our ducks are in a row so that we can have available to us, and we have already got available to us, but we need to be able to continue to buy them when we need them, our ankle monitors for electronic monitoring of our probationers. So that's what this contract does for us, is it lets us purchase and then pay for the service to monitor them. And otherwise, I'll be happy to answer the questions.
Questions?
Nope.
I move that we approve.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Commissioners.
All right. Next item.
Item 5, administrative communications.
We'll take this opportunity to let anybody speak about whatever.
Good morning, Commissioners. Linda Oaks from the Health Department. The Shawnee County Health Department, in partnership with Child Care Aware of Eastern Kansas, will be hosting a free child care licensing orientation this Wednesday, February 5th, from 9:30 to 12 at the Crestview Community Center, which is 4801 Southwest Shunga Drive. I want to thank Shawnee County Parks and Rec for their partnership in this also. We know that the county is in need of more quality child care, so this is our way of trying to attract some folks who may be interested in this and want to learn more. It won't cost them anything. We'll have some refreshments, and we try to move these around town to get in the different neighborhoods. So that is our plan for this time, is at Crestview Community Center, again, Wednesday from 9:30 to 12. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Morning, Commissioners. Jeremy Myers, Parks and Recreation. We will be having a public engagement meeting for Clarion Woods Park. It's going to be held at the Prince of Peace Lutheran Church, 3625 Southwest Wanamaker Road. That is going to be tomorrow, Tuesday, February 4th at 6 p.m.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Jeremy, can you tell us just a little bit about what's happening out at Clarion Woods and why we're having a public engagement?
Yeah, to answer that and some additional information regarding our public engagements in general, we'd love to get out with our community. I know since I've been here about a year ago, we've had public engagements at Collins Park with the updates there. We've had public engagement at Major Palm. One of my goals is for 2020 is to get out there even more to make sure the public is aware of what we are doing in the parks, upgrades, enhancements. But we are also, always take emails, phone calls, social media input. We have a new parking lot going on at Clarion Woods. We've done some updates in the past year regarding the pond and some riprap around the pond to make it a little more enjoyable. Plus, we also started doing some removing of some cedars and some honeysuckle as well. So we're going to address some of that issue as well. We're going to outline the trail maps and some future trails as well.
At the Clarion Woods, we had opened up the parking lot. We excavated the pond, made it more handicap accessible, added the riprap, cleared out some of the brush just to make, again, more handicap accessible to the public. So we're not planning any major spaces to be built on it, but really making it just more accessible to the public.
Exactly, and, you know, the trail users down there, when I was down there this morning, and it's just away from, getting away from the city. You know, it's beautiful nature, beautiful conservation park, it's peaceful, but it's also a neighborhood park, and we want to open any comment and address any needs for that community as well.
Okay, so the public engagement is to maybe help alleviate some of the concerns from the Clarion Woods homeowners, that there's not going to be an influx of new construction or changing the atmosphere of Clarion Woods Park.
Exactly. That's our goal.
Jeremy, are we still working with Wildlife and Parks as far as putting fish in that pond?
For sure, yeah. We enjoy our partnership with the Wildlife Parks and Tourism, as well as KDHE, to make sure that Clarion Woods Pond is clean and enjoyable for all.
Could you give us that address and time again? When that-
3625 Southwest Wanamaker Road, Prince of Peace Church, Lutheran Church, over at basically the corner of 37th and Wanamaker. 6 p.m. Tuesday, February 4th.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you, guys.
Anyone else like to speak? Seeing none, there is no need for an executive session today, so we're adjourned, and remember, there's no meeting on Thursday. We'll see you next Monday. Thank you.
Did you hear my good friend,